It's better than alcohol, is what everyone's been saying. But the crazy thing is, for the first time ever, there are more daily weed smokers than there are alcohol drinkers. Now that's something that I just completely pulled out of my ass, or at least saw with my own eyes. But let's actually look into it. Alright, so we're not crazy. In 2022, 17 million Americans reported daily marijuana use, as opposed to 14 million Americans reported daily alcohol consumption. There you have it. We are now on the other side. A substance that went from being taboo and illegal to being sold on every corner in your city pretty much. Anywhere I go, there are dispensaries everywhere. And don't get me wrong, I've been there. And I'm here to share with you some lessons that I was able to derive from what weed actually does to you. And here are the things that people don't actually like to say, but they know is happening. I started off by saying weed is better than alcohol. That's what everybody says these days. But it turns out, yes, alcohol visibly does worse damage. It makes people violent, or it can make people violent, or hurt themselves, hurt others, put other people in danger. But it also harms your body. It dries out your brain, it kills brain cells, as you all know, and it can cause liver cirrhosis. It can damage your liver. Also, if you drink a lot of beer, it's going to give you a beer belly, which essentially is just visceral fat. For those of you that don't know, visceral fat is fat deposited on top of your organs, on the outside of organs, not like the usual fat which goes under your skin or outside of the muscles. Visceral fat gets stored in your abdominal cavity, essentially. That's why it looks like those men with beer bellies are pregnant in a way. But we're not here to talk about that. But now that we have all of that out of the way, let's look at weed. On the surface, it doesn't look that bad. You get stoned, it's fun, it's haha, it's okay, maybe smoking is bad for your lungs, smoking anything is bad. Great, maybe you don't smoke it, you take edibles. Okay, you don't notice any immediate effects, nothing really happens to you, you live, your life continues, you move on. But here's what I've also personally experienced when weed back in the day became mainstream. We just gotta call out the elephant in the room. It makes you stupid. Like, actually drops your IQ points. And I'll bring up some studies shortly to back this up. But it is undeniable. Now, from my own experience, I'm someone who is extremely sharp-minded. I always have very good memory, short-term and long-term. I'm saying that to someone like that, well, it took me from being a sharp-minded individual to short-term memory loss. Can you believe it? I used to try to recall past events, and it suddenly started to be hard. Whenever I would look back at something, I'd be like, I don't really remember. Or it feels like you're trying to think through some fog. That's why they call it, your mind becomes foggy or cloudy. You literally can't see through the mist. It's too thick. And it hurt my brain trying to figure out why. I knew I'm always somebody who remembers things extremely well to the detail. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, I couldn't remember shit. I mean, I couldn't recall events as fast as I usually can. I'm also someone who thinks a lot in their mind, and I like to do mental analysis or mental calculations, whatever, everything is done in my mind. And suddenly it felt like it's impossible. Like, I remember there being a turning point where I found it extremely hard to think inside my brain. I had to literally sit down and write out my thoughts. Now, I'm not saying that's bad to write out your thoughts. I'm saying it's bad that you can no longer do that in your own mind. And those of you who are getting stoned on a daily basis right now, you guys know what I'm talking about. You always feel like your mind is up in the clouds. Everything becomes harder. Not only that, I'll tell you more. Video games that required strategy became harder. I grew up playing this game called Minecraft. A lot of you know it. In Minecraft, especially if you're playing with mods, you gotta plan your base, you gotta plan out your house, you gotta think of logistics. And I remember sitting there like, this is too hard. We all know that moment where you're sitting there and you're just thinking, all right, this is way too hard. I can't do this right now. And also, for a perspective of all the things I'm saying, this is coming from somebody who's done this casually, only in social events, here and there, not daily, weekly, sure. That's the adverse effects you can expect. I'm not even talking about the person who does it every day. I knew a lot of people who do it on a daily basis. They're stoned all day, every day. And it's just absolutely insane. Everyone keeps saying that it's harmless or it barely does anything. And the truth is, it couldn't be further from the truth, actually. Now, here's another thing that many people talk about. We used to falsely believe When I say we, I mean my friends and I. We used to falsely believe that we were happy. Yes, as humans, we're all in search for happiness. And the funny thing is, we thought we figured it out. Like, oh, it's so easy to be happy. And we never attributed to doing any kind of substances. It was always, life is so simple. Everything is just awesome. How are people depressed? I think we just figured out how to be happy. That is the biggest false illusion that you can basically be in. Let's think about it. What does weed do? Weed makes things seem more fun. So naturally, things that are boring, monotone, daily life things that you just have to do end up feeling more fun. But that's not natural. You're not supposed to enjoy doing some things. They're supposed to be hard. How is staying at home and doing nothing and just doing your regular chores and then maybe playing some video games feeling more fun to you than socializing, being with friends, going out on adventures, traveling? And I completely agree. Once in a while, it's fun. I love staying in by myself and just doing my own thing. I absolutely love it. But not always. You can't always do that. And it's not always going to be fun. Instead, if you haven't been stoned, you would have found ways to have fun that is naturally supposed to fulfill you as a human. A lot of humans like traveling. That's why I use this example. We like to see a change of scenery. So that naturally means you're probably going to find a job that pays you well, or you're going to try to move towards that. Maybe you're going to save some money. You're going to book a trip. You're never going to do those things if you're stoned. You'll just never do that. I'm not here trying to talk you out of smoking weed. I'm just talking about the effects of it. We've all been there. Some of you guys are still there. And this is just the adverse effects nobody tells you. You can function. This is actually really dangerous. When you're on alcohol or something crazier, you can't actually do anything. You can't function. You can't live your normal life. You have to wait till it's over or till you're sober. On weed, you can function. Not very well, not optimally, but you can still do stuff, which is why you can do it all day, every day, and get away with it. You can hide it. People who use weed on a daily basis, they're so good at hiding it. But what happens over time is that becomes your personality. No one can even tell if you're high if that's just you always. That's just him. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that you can hide it from someone, but also that's just you. Does being stoned 24/7 define you? You're just that guy now whose head is always up in the clouds. You're not really present. And here's the thing, if some of you are thinking, all right, you made your point, we all get it, but we can't stop. I don't really have a grand solution for you, but here's what I can say. Here's what works for me. When your life is busy enough doing other things that are more important to you, you just don't have time for it. You can't afford. By afford, I don't mean financially. I mean time-wise. You can't afford to spend the hours, days, minutes burned doing that, living in a dream world where everything seems fun, than doing other more important things. You just can't afford to do that. That's what works for me. That's why any kind of substance, it doesn't matter what it is, alcohol, I'm not against those things. It's okay to do it here and there. It's just that I don't have time for it. And I'm not saying I'm out here grinding 24/7. I can find time to play video games, sure. But it's just that. The time invested being high actually is way longer than you think. Even if you were to do it in one evening is now a whole evening of a day gone, and the next day, because you spent the next day being dumb or mellow. You don't feel like doing anything. It's like a weed hangover. It's the worst thing ever. And then you gotta kickstart your week again. That just sucks. So there's just no time for those kind of things. There's no time for hangovers. It's not on the menu. If you planned for it, if it's a social event, great, have fun. But otherwise, what works for me is just, I don't have time for those things. I couldn't be bothered. And over time, you just stop thinking about this. This isn't advice on how to get over some kind of addiction. This is just me saying, just use your brain, bro. It's not that deep. Clearly, weed has very adverse effects. And so many people are just coping by saying it's better than alcohol. The truth is both are bad. And I'm keeping my word when I told you guys that I'm gonna find some data to back up what I said earlier about weed making you dumber or losing IQ points. Here it is. A study has been conducted on 1,000 people aged 13 to 38 who have used weed on a regular basis in adolescent years. On average, showed an IQ drop of 6 to 8 points. That's actually insane. It's way more than I thought. Considering that there's a shortage of IQ points in a lot of people these days, but on top of that, you're telling me their IQ can drop another 6 to 8 points? I don't know if the world's prepared for that. This also could be a reason why immigrants that are coming into the Western world are taking over. Yeah, taking over in general. They just got more brains left. It's not accepted to do these kind of things in other cultures. But for us living here, we gotta manage it. Otherwise, we're screwed. All right, let's end it here. If you guys like this video, feel free to like it, comment, subscribe, share your stories, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.